Perfect. All right. I am being seen. That's fantastic. Let's get started, everybody. It is 2:30. So welcome to I'm Over It. I am super glad to have you all here. I was inspired to do this group for multiple reasons. Usually when I've transitioned through something in my own life or I notice that a bunch of clients are going through a series of things, that's when I decide to say, let's do a masterclass on this, or let's figure out how to support people in this area of life. So please interact, make comments, ask me questions. This is all about me being here to serve you. And I know many of you are going to be watching the replays and aren't able to come live. So if you're on and you're watching a replay, please still feel free to put comments, whether we're on YouTube or on Facebook, put comments below. And I'll come back, I'll answer them, I'll interact in whatever way, or if it's a really complex question, I'll answer it in the following class when possible. So nice to have you here. I suppose I should introduce myself. Some of you don't know me. My name is Dawn Bennett. I've been in the field now for 26 years of doing emotional healing work with people, body work, and really helping people find love. Like, I've always been fascinated with love. Even when I was a young kid, I'd look at people's hearts and be like, I wonder what love feels like for them. It was just my skill, my curiosity. And today, we're going to talk about when love goes not so well. When you are over something in a relationship. And so today we're going to focus a little bit more on the complexities of being over something. Tomorrow, and we're going to talk sometimes about how to stay in a relationship when you're over it. We're going to talk some bits in the next 3 days about how to leave a relationship when you're over it, or how to know if it's time. But also, how do you make sure that you're at the point that you are actually so clear about what you want and what you desire that making the choice is easy, or at least easier. I actually have a full class called When to End It, When to Stay that really does deeper dive work, but this should help give you guidance to help support you in that way. So what most people say when they come to me saying I'm over it is that they are in relationship and they feel like they are doing it all. They're not being seen. They're not being heard. They don't feel valued. They don't feel loved. But they are in such a strong place, and they've gotten into such a rhythm of doing this that it's almost become habitual. But yet this anger, or this resentment, or this sadness, or this disconnection starts building up, and it's like, why am I in this relationship if it's not a true partnership? Why am I in this relationship if I'm not getting the support of my partner? Why am I doing all of this? Why my needs aren't getting met? And then we get burned out, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get resentful. Now, some of us do this just out of habit. We watched our mom do everything for the family, or we watched our dad do everything for the family, or we learned that it's our job as the nice one, or the responsible one, or the one that was of a certain age group, that it is our job to take care of the family in XYZ way. And then we bring that forward into our love relationships because that's what we've learned. That's what we've learned by observing, by doing, by seeing. But yet part of us knows that this doesn't feel right. This isn't what makes my heart feel good. And sometimes it really sneaks up on a person. So, for example, so this happens in relationship with me all the time. What I say is that I have this pattern that I've developed in relationships over the years. And here's what it looks like. I get with a partner. And I'm a very high energy woman. I take charge, I take lead, I know a lot of stuff, I'm super smart. I know how to look at cars, I know how to do construction, I know how to do electrical, I know how to do a lot of things. I know how to cook. I don't clean really ever, so, people can take care of that part. But what happens then is in relationship If I ask somebody else to do something, or if I feel like they're not seeing it, I would just take care of it. Part of me didn't mind that because if I see something that needs to be done and I have the energy and the time, I just do it. Sure, no problem. Where the challenge comes in then for me is when I stop being able to trust my partner to do anything at all. And so this can happen in a multitude of ways. Either I ask them to do something and they say, sure, I'll do that on Friday. And then they don't do it. Then by Sunday, I'm annoyed that they haven't done it. Maybe I've nagged them a little bit, quote unquote nagged. In other words, reminded them of their commitment, reminded them of the words that they said. And then if they still don't show up, I just do it myself. Because it feels easier for me to just do it myself. Because my identity says, well, I don't want to be like the bitchy, complainy woman who's always out nagging her partner to do stuff. Why would I do that? I can just do it myself. But yet then I start creating this dynamic of I can do it myself. I will do it myself. I don't trust you to do it anymore because I jump that fast from people once or twice not following through on their word to taking care of it myself. This is a huge pattern I've had for my whole life. And so what I've had to learn over time is, okay, someone made a commitment. Let's say that they made a commitment to fix a leaky faucet. Okay. And say they're going to do it on Friday. And it doesn't get done. Now what I've learned how to do is say, hey, you said that you'd get that faucet done today, or hey, you said you get that faucet done yesterday, because sometimes I'll remind ahead, sometimes I'll say something afterwards. Are you still able to do that? I know that you got busy. When are you able to do that next? And I'll start looking for clear communication. I'll open up the conversation instead of getting angry, resentful, bitter. And then I will follow it up with, awesome. Hey, it's one of my love languages. Acts of service is one of my love languages. And so when you tell me you're going to do something and you don't, I don't feel like you care. So I get that sometimes you forget or that life gets busy or other things get in the way. And I need you to come to me when you're not going to be able to do something that you promised and say like, hey, I know I said I'd take care of the faucet this weekend. I'm not going to be able to do it for XYZ reason. Here's when I think I might be able to do it, or whatever, right? Because then at least for me, I feel like I've been acknowledged, I've been heard, I'm valued, and I'm seen. Now, if I'm like, well, you know what, the faucet is annoying the heck out of me, I'm just going to take care of it. I'm doing it with a different level of choice. I'm not doing it sitting there the whole time going, well, they didn't do it, so I guess I have to, because I don't want to nag or I don't want to blah, blah, blah. Now I'm doing it out of, you know what? It's more important to me to have this faucet fixed than it is to wait for them to do it. And now it becomes a place of power. And so as we look at this whole class, and we start talking about I'm over it, sometimes we are talking about a dynamic of where are we letting go of our own power? Where are we not communicating our needs, wants, and desires? But also, where's our partner not meeting us? Hold on, someone just texted me that I think is trying to get in the class, and since I sent out all the wrong links, I just want to make sure. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. Because here's what happens. When we're in love or when we're in relationship and we start over-functioning, when we start losing those little bits of an ability to connect, to communicate, and we don't correct it immediately in a relationship, it turns into this long, drag-out process, or it can anyway, of not being seen, heard, and valued. And so when we feel like we're taking over all the parts of a relationship, of course we're not going to feel seen. Of course we're not going to be heard. Of course we're not going to feel valued and loved. I want to talk a little bit about the dynamics of like divine feminine and divine masculine a little bit here, just to set up some framework of how I'm going to be speaking. So this isn't about roles of who should do what, right? This works with lesbian couples, works with gay couples. This works when quote unquote roles are flipped in a male-female relationship. When we talk about feminine energy, think about feminine energy, if we look at traditional Chinese medicine, it's kind of this beautiful, soft, receiving energy, right? So it's about flow. It's about reception. It's about power of creation, right? Like the womb is the ultimate creative center. Like we birth not only people from here, but new ideas, new concepts. We birth connection. We birth relationships. And we are ultimate receivers. Okay? Now, this doesn't mean that we can't do, because of course we can. But our doing as a feminine, as a strong divine feminine structure, also comes when we have a strong masculine framework to support us. So what does that mean? So if you think about the masculine energy is the action energy, right? They do, they perform, they provide, they give. That's part of the masculine energy. Safety, structure. And when they have that strong framework, right, the strong masculine frame, when they are leading, when they are taking the role and saying like, here, I am here for you, I'm going to guide you along the way, not because we're weak, but because when the divine feminine has a strong support, when they have safety, when they have support, when they have structure, their deepest powers come forth. And what do we create? We create children. We create a home. We create love. We create sensuality. But we need the safe structure. If you look at people like Teal Swan, Jake Woodard, there's a bunch of people out there. They talk about this in a variety of different ways. That when, like for example, they'll talk about it in the role of a single mother. Like, can a single mother do it all? She has to, right? But is that the same framework that you have when you have a community, right? Providing you the safety, support, structure. That masculine frame can be community, not necessarily a quote unquote man. But if you've got more safety, structure, support, community, now you function better as a mom because you're not doing it all. And now support, by the way, I also want to give this caveat, doesn't necessarily mean financial support. Right? Sure. Most women these days make some level of their own money. Or heck, in some households, the woman is the bread maker and the guy's the stay-at-home dad, right? So I'm not talking about roles of masculine and feminine support in this way. But one of the things that we get to look at too in the divine feminine is that whether or not you have your own money, are you also allowing the man to give you support and safety and structure? Are you allowing him to lead? Because if I'm always in my masculine and I'm always pushing and I'm always doing and I'm never asking for help, I'm never asking for my wants and needs to get met, I'm not communicating clearly how that structure, how that safety, how that support can best serve me, then what I do is I start taking over the masculine role in the masculine frame. And then guess what happens inside? Why do I need you anymore? Right? I'm doing it all. I don't need you anymore. And the guy's sitting back there going, I want to help. I want to support you. I want to be part of your life. I want to create with you. I want to create a relationship. And we're like, nope. I mean, yes, but I don't actually really need you. So this is where when we're starting to go, I'm over it as women, sometimes this is actually what's happening, is that we have actually shifted the dynamic so much by not allowing ourselves to be held, to be supported in a certain way. Because we're on a timeline, especially in America. We're on a timeline for XYZ to get done. We have a way that it should be done. Here's the right time to mow the lawn, or the way that you should mow the lawn, or the time in which you should fix my car, or show up for dinner, or all the things. And we take away that ability for the man to hold structure, right? Man meaning the male energy, the way that I'm talking about it right now. So notice, just notice for a minute. Whether you're a male, whether you're female, no matter what kind of relationship dynamics are you experiencing that relationship dynamic for yourself? Is that what's happening in your relationship, where one person is trying to hold both the masculine and feminine roles, and it's creating an imbalance somehow that's not allowing you to be exactly what you need to be, what you want to be, to get your needs met, to be heard, to feel safe, to feel supported, right? Because women, listen to this, men also need safety. They need a level of emotional safety. They need to know that as they're holding this safe structure for us, and we're doing all this beautiful movement and flow and creation and building for them, that they also have an opportunity to communicate their needs, and that we can provide a sense of emotional safety for them just the way that they do for us. Because what I see too often is that women say, oh, I want a man to be really emotional. I want him to be communicative. I want him to be emotionally intelligent and aware. And then a man will communicate his feelings, and we're like, whoa. And we don't give safety and support. And the man goes, whoa, I guess that wasn't the right thing to do. I'll just keep that down there from now on. And so where can we find this interwoven flow, right? Where the male and female energy create synergy together, so both of you become more. So when you're in the spot of saying, I am over this, I want you to pause. And you already know what you're over. I mean, that's why you're here, right? Because there's some part of you that is either over the relationship, you're over a behavior, you're over an interaction, you're over a dynamic, something in the relationship. Sorry, I'm sitting on this chair crooked. Okay, there we go. It's one of those spinny chairs, but it doesn't have a back, so I was on it sideways. I didn't realize it. So when you're saying you're over it in some part of the relationship, I want you to pause and say, okay, what is actually going on here? What is truly at the core happening? And am I allowing spaciousness for the dynamics to shift? Or am I hiding? Am I pushing? Am I avoiding? Am I throwing my anger at them? What is actually happening? Right? Because for humans, when we don't feel safe, when we don't feel valued, when we don't feel emotionally stable, our nervous system doesn't feel very calm. I mean, look at the levels of anxiety right now. They are out of this world in the American culture. And anxiety is a fear of the future. It's your brain moving forward into time and saying, like, this is what could happen. This is what might happen. This is what I'm imagining in the future. And it destroys our nervous system. It destroys our immune systems. It destroys our hormonal balance because we're like, beep, all the time until we have nothing left. So let me give you another example. Last summer, had a lot going on. The person I was with at the time agreed to do some things and then kept following through because he was on his own timeline, right? Fine. I just need a certain level of communication about it. So I would get upset. Sometimes I'd do it myself. But what I started noticing is I stopped sleeping well. And I thought, oh, all my friends are talking about this. I'm hitting perimenopause. It's my hormones. It's my hormones. Shoot. So I started talking to people about what hormones should I take and when, and going to functional medicine practitioners and trying to get everything all balanced. And what I realized is that instead what was going on is that I wasn't getting everything met in the way that I want. I wasn't feeling like my partner was following through on the commitments. And so when I wasn't feeling like they were following through, my brain was already going like, is this okay? My financial situation is going down. My business is struggling. I had had this huge trauma happen in one of the classes I was in. So I was like dealing with this trauma and watching my finances shift and watching all these things change. And I didn't know where safety was anymore. And so then what that does, that shifts the nervous system into fight flight. And once again, when you're in fight flight, it changes everything about how your body interacts with safety. It changes cortisol levels. It changes ability to sleep, your melatonin, right? So your ability to process food, rest, digest. Are you going to play games? Okay. We're going to take a quick pause here as I move into the other room. No, you're good. It's very sweet by not turning on volume, but it's too distracting for me to have all that in the background. All right, so we're going to move here. Ta-da! Welcome to my bedroom right now. Actually, I'm going to sit up here. It's going to be better. Okay. So let's talk about this dynamic. There we go. See, isn't this fun? Everything's happening live. Forgot the kids were going to be home today. Okay. So, when you feel over something, notice what is going on with your body. What is your body saying? What is it speaking? What language is it using? And when you start noticing your natural reactions and your reaction to create safety, right? Because we're going to have that natural reaction of I'm not feeling safe right now. And then we're going to have our reaction of our body trying to create, or our brain trying to create the next level of safety for ourselves, right? So what we want to do is when you feel like, you know what, this behavior in my relationship, I'm just so sick of it. And let's say you're trying to communicate to your partner, like, hey, I need something different. Here's what I need. So I see this happen all the time in couples, right? So I had a client, for example, where she came in and she started talking about how annoyed she was at her husband for not doing anything, right? And then we started drilling down into it. What is he not doing? How does it make you feel? How are you communicating about what you want or need him to do? And what we realized, and this is so common, both ways, is that she didn't always know what she needed. She just knew she needed help. And even though she could list off a million tasks that she wanted to help with, she wasn't actually able to see when he did jump in and help. Like, it didn't feel like the pressure release had gone off because the list was so long. Like, have you ever had that where you have a list of like 20 things to do? So even if someone does 2 of them, you're like, ooh, that helps a little bit, but I still have 18 more things to do. And that's kind of the dynamic that was playing out. So either she wasn't getting, quote unquote, enough things weren't getting done, or she wasn't feeling, or she was feeling like, oh, I have to ask every time I want something done. And that to her felt like also like another betrayal. Like, you should just notice that the kids need to be fed, or you should just notice that the lawn needs to be mowed, or you should just notice that my car is low on gas. I'm just making stuff up, right? But this is also part of the dynamic, is that some people's super strength is very visual. Like, I can look around and notice what needs to be done. I can prioritize it in my head, and I can execute. That's a super skill of mine, right? Other people I know are very much list-oriented. Oh, I noticed that has to be done. I need to write it on a list, because then I need to sit and think about how the best way is to be done. Do I need supplies? Is there a limit that this needs to be done on? Is what's priority? Should I take care of the air conditioning filter first, or do I need to take care of the plumbing outside, or do I need to take care of the lawn? Like, what's my priority here? Because I only have so much time, and so how do I prioritize these things? And then I'm sitting there going like, "Well, you just do something." When the other person is like, I am doing something. I'm making a list of all the things I need to do so I can plan. And so when I go to Menards, I can grab 18 things at once, and then I can do a couple little projects a day for the next, So sometimes we also aren't actually seeing what's getting done. We're not actually seeing where progress is being made. And then we put a meaning to it. So I love using this example. When your husband doesn't take the garbage out, when your wife leaves the dishes all over the kitchen counter, when your kids leave the clothes all over the floor. And you're like, why can't they just do the thing? And we start feeling like we're not valued, we're not being heard, we're not being respected. We've decided we've actually made a link, right? We've actually made a link saying like, now by them not doing X, the meaning I'm making of it is Y. By them not taking out the garbage, it means that they don't value me or my time. It means that they don't care that I'm doing all these things. It means that they're too lazy. It means that, right? And we make a meaning out of it. And it's that meaning that we make that then drives us crazy, right? It's not usually the action that drives us crazy. Usually it's the meaning that we make out of the action or inaction, out of the words or the lack of words. And then the arguments start. And now this is where it really gets interesting and dynamic, because different types of attachment styles will fight in different ways and will react in different ways and need different types of time to process. So for example, I'm a very external processor. So when I'm talking about what I need and what I want, half the time I'm figuring it out as it comes out of my mouth because I don't actually know yet. I don't actually know until as I'm saying it, I'm like, yeah, but kind of like that, but kind of like this. And then when you don't do that, then it's like this for me, but then it's also like this for me, but I guess it's kind of like this. And then I just like, what seems like rambling, which I'm sure like my partners would be like, she just shut up and get to the point, right? But this is how I process. Like, this is me expressing my needs the best way I can. Whereas some of the people I've dated, their way of expressing their needs is going, okay. And then 2 days later, they bring it back up and tell me what they need or what they want or how they felt or whatever. And I'm like, but didn't we already do this? We already came to an agreement. Or vice versa, right? Where I say, here's what I want, here's what, and I'm processing out loud, but then I have another half a day to think about it and I change my mind and then I forget to communicate. And then they're like, whoa, I thought we decided on this. So when we're in this place of such frustration in our relationship over whatever's happening in the dynamics of our partner, start looking at what are the dynamics between us? What am I doing? What meaning am I making out of it? What are they doing? What meaning am I making out of it? And how can I communicate differently? And sometimes that looks like or sounds like this. I don't even know how to say this more clearly for you. Have you ever said that in a relationship? Like, I caught myself saying it a couple of times last year where I was like, I thought I communicated. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I'm doing the best I can to say this and the best way I can to express my needs. And I need you to step up. And if you don't understand, I need you to ask me questions because I can't just keep trying to tell you what I want and need and then have you not follow through. Right? And then it creates that dynamic of now I don't feel heard. Now I don't feel seen. Now I don't feel safe. But not because they're not trying. Not because he didn't care. But because the way I communicated and the way he received it, just like, were mismatches. And also remember, in partnerships, we are often teaching each other something new. A way that we like XYZ to be said or done, or a little rhythm that we have, or some OCD that we have, or some pattern that we have. And they have to learn that. So, one thing that I also hear people say is like, I'm so tired of having to tell them. They should just remember. They should just do it automatically. So, remember learning how to drive a car? You got to think about, oh, here's the, especially I learned on a manual, so of course I always use that example, right? Because I had to learn the clutch, and I had to learn the stick, and I had to learn the timing, and I had the blinker, and then looking, and I got to look at all the mirrors, and I got to change. And there was a lot to navigate all at once. And then it became easier and easier and easier. And now I can do it all and drink a Coke and text. Not that I do that, but you know what I mean? Like we become more skillful at something and we think about it less. The same thing happens with the dynamics in a relationship. Sometimes we are teaching people how we need to be treated. Sometimes we are teaching people, and I don't mean like if they're treating you really, really awful that you should stay, right? And teach them how you need to be treated. But, for example, I had a guy swear at me once in a relationship and he was like, fuck you. And I was like, no. You do not say those words to me. Ever. And if they ever come out of your mouth again, I'm gone. But that was the dynamic that he grew up with. So for him, that wasn't a big deal. For me, that the only time I've said F you to somebody that I was in partnership with is when I was so frustrated it was time for me to leave. Like literally that's a relationship ending statement for me if I'm angry. So teaching and then having patience. Does it keep happening? So I'm over it. Okay. What is the rhythm? What is the pattern that's happening? And look at the dynamics as well. How does this keep happening? So if there's a relationship dynamic that's happening, something's not getting done, something's getting said, you're getting treated a certain way, you're not getting heard, you're not getting met, you're not getting seen, you're not getting honored, you're not getting taken care of, you're not getting the touch that you need, you're not getting the love that you need, you're not getting the time that you need, you're scared about money, you're scared, whatever it is, whatever that dynamic is, make a clear plan for yourself and for others. Because here's the problem, or here's the thing. If there's no plan, there's no consequences per se, how do you be clear? So you can say, hey, let's sit down. So I've mentioned this to you before, that this is what I need, want, desire, feel safe with, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is the dynamic is. Here's what I need from you. Can you do that? Like even start with curiosity right there. Can you do that? Not just like, yeah, I can do it, but like literally as an action or as a gift or as a whatever, as time, can you do that? Like, is that even possible for you? Do you have the time, energy, money, resources, whatever it's going to take to do that? Start there. Because sometimes the other person does want to change and they don't have the time, the money, the energy, the resources. Or they do want to do something for you, but they don't have the time, money, energy, resources. Knowledge. So if we're not even clear about can they and are they willing in the first place, but we just say, hey, here's what I want, and then we just expect it to get done, we need to open up more communication. So that way the other person gets to say, actually, no, I can't do that. So what can we negotiate on to make this come back to center? Or if I never do it right for you anyway, right? Because sometimes there's that thing. Some people have very OCD or very precise ways of doing things. Like my grandmother, you had to wash the dishes a very, very, very precise way. First, you had to rinse them and set them aside. And then you had to do the water in a certain way. And then you had to wash the glasses first, and then the silverware, and then the plates, and then the pots and pans. And if you did it in any other order, she deemed it wrong and we'd have to redo it. It's annoying as shit, right? But sometimes we have these processes. So if I'm expecting my partner to do that and my version of cleaning the dishes is spraying some Dawn soap on it and just rinsing it off and throwing it in the thing, that's not a good match. And maybe I'm willing to go through their whole process. Or maybe I say, you know what? I know you have this really precise way of doing dishes. How about you do the dishes? What else can I take off your plate? What can I do that I'm going to be more skillful at or that I like doing? Sometimes it's a like doing kind of thing. And then it feels more even and we've got an agreement in place. Okay. So the more intentional, the more communicative we can be, the better off we are. And some of you are like, yeah, but the thing I'm over is like they're drinking or they're sleeping in late or they're staying up late or they're disrespectful or they're watching football every day or they're whatever it is that just doesn't align with our values. Then we get to look at what's happening with that. For example, I've dated quite a few people that love television. I hate it. I hate television. I hate television. I will sit down if I'm exhausted. I will sit down if it's a super rainy, blizzardy, something kind of day in Minnesota and it feels nice to just cozy up and snuggle on the couch. Like, totally do that. Do I want to do it on a regular basis? No. Nope. No desire at all. And I would find myself judging them for doing it and then getting angry because now I'm out doing all the projects while they're sitting on the couch watching football or watching basketball or watching a television show or watching a movie or whatever it is. And now I'm angry. Now I'm bitter. And now I'm like, you don't do anything. You're lazy. And then I'm out because now I'm doing it all again. But is that fair? Like, truly, is that fair? If I got in a relationship with them knowing that that's what they like and that's what they need, some of us need more rest than others. Some of us need more downtime than others, especially if you look at introverts or people that do a lot of hard labor during the day, mental or emotional labor, by the way, not just one or the other, because sometimes we think about labor just as physical labor, but mental labor can be just as taxing, if not more. So what if this is their only way to recoup? And now I'm upset at them for that. But I like moving, so I'm out doing my own thing. So where is it my responsibility to let go of that? Or how do we change the dynamics? Where, okay, while you're watching football, I'm going to go read. Or I'm going to go hang out with my friends. Or I'm going to go kayaking. Or I'm going to do something else that's maybe not a household chore so then I can feel good. And I know some of you right now are going like, I can't do that. I've got kids. I've got responsibilities. And while he's doing that, I have to take care of all of this because if I don't do it, it won't get done. And that is a totally fair point. And then you need to sit down and you need to name needs and the impact. Great. So if you're going to sit and watch football, I need you to take care of the kids while you do that. Like, I need you to be attentive to the kids. I need you to be feeding the kids. I need you to be whatever so I can do XYZ. So I can go grocery shopping. So I can go do laundry. So I have a break of my own for a couple of minutes. Right? How do you sit down and negotiate that with your partner? And some partners are going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so now we're talking about a different dynamic. Is your partner willing to step up with you? Or are you willing to step up with your partner, right? Because this goes both ways. There might be some things that they are asking you to step up to that you don't even consider as stepping up. Such as, hey, honey, why don't you take a break and watch football with me for an hour and we can snuggle on the couch? You're like, no, I got too much to do. No, I can't do that. I know I'm using broad stereotypes here, but I'm using it because they're such common examples, ones that I hear all the time. But think about, how does this apply to you? I loved it. I talked to this woman. Her husband's been dead for many years. But one of the things that she talked about, they'd been married for over 20 years before he died. And one of the things she talked about is how he was a night owl. He loved being up like all night long, and she loved sleeping in, and she was more of like a, get up early in the morning, right? Something like that. Maybe it was vice versa. It doesn't matter. But so they weren't on the same schedule, so it made it sometimes hard with work and with his work and with her work and all the things to actually spend time together. So they had to set aside some time. But they found a way to connect anyway that suited both of them. And one of those things were they had a journal together. And they would write in the journal for each other. Like, hey, honey, I'm sitting here. It's 1 a.m, just thinking about you. I snuck in the bedroom and you look so cute laying there or something. Hey, honey, I got up and you should have seen the sunrise this morning while you were sleeping. It was so beautiful and the color was red and orange. And, I know you're enjoying your sleep, but I wish that you were here right now with me. But they'd write each other these little notes. And she's like, it was so beautiful because I'd go in there to write and I'd see that he wrote something. And then it created this sense of connection. So when we're even on super opposite schedules, super stressful things, we can still find ways to creatively connect. Do you only text them when you need something, or are you texting them little love notes throughout the day? And maybe that's not your love language, but it's theirs. How are you reaching out and stepping up to show that you care? And some of you are like, yeah, but you know what? I'm so over this already. I've been doing everything and I do not have the capacity for one more thing. And I hear that very clearly, which is why I've escaped out of so many relationships that way. I completely understand. So then becomes the question, the hardest question of all. Is this a deal breaker for you in your relationship? If it wasn't about money, if it wasn't about the kids, if it wasn't about the blah, 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 if it was just you and your partner, would this be a deal breaker? Yes or no? That's the hard truth you got to face. Because if it's a deal breaker, then you have two options. You either sit down and you hammer it out until it is no longer a deal breaker, either by doing your own healing work and shifting your perspective and shifting your belief and shifting the meanings that you're making around it, or you hammer it out with your partner to find a solution that makes it no longer a deal breaker. And if that's not possible, then maybe it's time to look at, how do I leave? And you say, oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, we've got kids, we've got all the things. Okay. How do you start making a plan? How do you stay in your integrity? Get what you want and get what you need. And not in a super selfish way, right? Not like, oh, I guess, I don't know if you guys saw this. There was this viral reel that went around. I don't remember if it was on TikTok or Facebook or whatever, but a lot of people were making fun of it. And it was this woman who was standing in this beautiful house, super clean house, and she's crying, right? And she's just like, my husband does the dishes and he does the things. He cleans up after his job and he mows the lawn. She lists off this huge list of things that he did. And then she's like, but he left the kitchen garbage on the floor. And it just felt so disrespectful for me. Like, how could he do that? And she was seriously upset, right? And people made fun of her all over the place. And then people were making fun of her husband for being a wussy and, oh my God, like, you take care of your woman this well? Like, dude, if she's whining about you on TikTok, like, you should get out because she obviously doesn't appreciate you. And we don't know the underlying dynamics of the relationship at all. We don't. And what? So is like, how do I say this? It's not about like need, like I would really like. It's about like, is there something in my soul that's never going to be satisfied by this? For example, when I go through my Learning to Find Love class, it's my soulmate class that I teach. I have people figure out the 5 traits that they need in a long-term partner, right? whatever those are. So we look at what are the things that you didn't like about your past partners? What did you love about them? Let's turn all the past negative stuff into positives. We pull them together into themes. We put them into grids. We evaluate. We do all kinds of things with them. We do healing work around the things that weren't met. And people come up with their 5 top traits that they need in a soulmate at really deep levels. And one of the things that I teach them is like, if one of these things is missing, this is such a deep need for you that will be the relationship breaker. If you need communication and you know exactly what that looks like and exactly what that sounds like and what communication needs to be for you, because everyone wants to be communicated with, right? At some level. Communication might be like, I want you to talk to me once a day. Communication might be like, I need you to text me 20 times a day. But if you know what you need in that way, like at a deep soul level, and you're not able to coordinate that with your partner, is it the right relationship? The other thing we look at once the 5 traits are in place is how are they treating you? And how are you treating them? Are you giving them king or queen treatment? And are you receiving king or queen treatment? And I will tell you what, women, if you start appreciating the man that you're with and telling him how you appreciate what he's doing, appreciation and gratitude is super high on the vibration and the level of consciousness. Right? It's a super high vibration. You start changing the relationship dynamics. You start changing the vibration inside the relationship. And what that also does is that changes not only your vibration, but the man's desire to do more too, in general. I'm going to check for comments here on the Facebooks because it's saying that I know that there's people on because of the thing, but all my comments are locked up right now. This is so exactly where I'm at, and now I'm in the best place to get this. Now I'm still working to calm the fight or flight for the moment. Yes, exactly, right? So, a couple different ways to calm the fight or flight. First of all, deep breaths. I know it sounds stupid, right? Like everyone's like, just take deep breaths and blah, blah, blah. But there's a few things that happen when we go into fight flight. First of all, we get hyper focused. So when we get hyper focused, we're literally focusing in. Like we can actually get ourselves in fight flight when we're focusing on our computer, when we're focusing on a task, when we're focusing on driving. Because when our eyes are intently focused at something for a long period of time, our body naturally thinks that we're in danger. Because that's what we do as mammals. We lock in. Boom. There's the danger. Right? So, deep breaths remind the body that we're not in danger. So you can do that by just moving down, like how far down can I breathe? Not forcing it down, not like, I'm going to force breath down, way down into my belly, not like that. But can I gently and easily allow my breath to drop farther and farther down? So every breath I take, can it be softer? Can it be gentler? Can I feel it moving down? Can I feel it in the back of my ribs? Can I feel it down into my pelvis? Can I feel it in my legs? Because technically, if we breathe in and our diaphragm drops down, it pushes all our guts down, which slightly shifts our pelvis, which slightly shifts our legs. It actually is palpable. So that's one. Number 2 is what we call defocusing the eyes. And so by defocusing the eyes, I'm going to do it with my fingers. You can play along with your fingers, but you can do it without your fingers. So if you look at both your fingers straight out in front of you, and then you start bringing them out to the sides. And I want you, and I'm going to keep it really tight because of the video screen here, and I want you to keep looking straight ahead, and in your peripheral vision, start looking at both your fingers. And how far back can you get both of your fingers and still see? And you may actually have to stop for a minute and let your eyes calm and let your eyes soften and let your breath soften, and then keep going. How far back can I go? And make it a game, right? Except normally your fingers would be way out here, right? But it doesn't matter. I don't even have to use my fingers. I can just sit here and say, can I see both walls right now? Can I gaze softly at the computer, but my awareness is on both the walls on either side of me? Because when we're in peripheral vision, our body goes, oh, look, we're safe. This is awesome. So the more often we can bring breath and bring a softened vision to our moment, the more we're going to drop out of fight flight. You can also do some emotional freedom techniques, tapping. That helps calm the body. Right? There's a lot of different things. Another thing you can do, don't do it till after I show you because there's not going to be able to see what I'm doing. But you can take your hands, cup them over your eyes, close your eyes, and then you're going to open your hands and then close them. My eyes stay closed. And I'm going to open my hands nice and slow. I'm going to close them. I'm going to open my hands. I'm going to close them. And I do over my ears. I'm going to open my hands. I'm going to slowly close them. We're going to do that 3 times. And once again, this is a nervous system calming technique. Because we take away some of the stimulation and we slowly let it back in. And then we take it away slowly and slowly let it back in. And it calms the system, right? Because we also have a rhythm to it. So our body goes, oh, okay. Yeah. And it's simple. And it's easy. When we're over it in relationship, we go into fight flight because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe often when we don't feel in control. So hard, right? Oh, I'm out of control. I can't control another human. I can't control their reactions. I can't control when they're going to do this for me. I can't control the way that they do it. And sometimes that puts us in a sense of a lack of safety, which brings up our fight flight. There was this presentation that I watched by a woman once, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but it popped in my head, so I guess I'm supposed to say it. But one of the things that she talked about is as a mother of like 3 kids with a working husband, and she was working in all the things and doing the stuff, and she's like, sometimes I just had to say, like, it actually doesn't matter if the floor is clean or dirty. Like, it does not matter in the long term of things. What are the biggest important things? Because she was a clean freak. She loved having everything super precise, super spot free. And then she found herself freaking out about germs, freaking out about if someone came over, what would her mother-in-law think, and blah, 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 right? And in some cultures, like mothers-in-laws can just stop by whenever they want. And if you don't have like snacks pretty much ready to go, and if you don't have a clean house, you get judged all the craziness, right? Not so much in the American culture, but in other cultures, like this is a huge deal. And so she had to start letting go of like, what does it actually matter for my health, to my kids' health, if my mother-in-law comes and the floor is dirty? Like, sure, culturally, it's a little bit of a big deal because we've been trained it's a big deal, because we believe it's a big deal. And guess what? If I let go of that belief that's a big deal, and I just say like, sorry, I didn't get a chance to do the floor today. You can go ahead and have whatever reaction you want. You can think I'm bad for your son or whatever you want. I'm still going to be polite and respectful to you. I'm still going to do everything appropriately. It's not that I'm going to be disrespectful or rude, but I'm also not going to let your reaction impact my health, my sense of safety, and my well-being in my own home. And that is taking power back. And the same thing goes when we're making up stories about whether they're doing the dishes or not doing the dishes, or how much they're helping with the kids, or any of the things. Are you in your power when you are deciding that it's so awful that they're not doing those things? Or are you giving your power up to your partner, being like, and now because of this, I'm going to suffer? And this isn't saying it's not real, right? It's totally real. Of course it's real, because otherwise you wouldn't be in this class. Of course it's real, because I wouldn't have left so many relationships, right? Like, all of this is real. And what do we get to learn and shift within ourselves so we can have calm and peace and love and a calm nervous system, and to shift the relation dynamics in the way that we want. Because if two different people come from two different households that have two different ways of doing things, it's not always going to work so smoothly. If I come from a household where people leave piles all over the place, and you come from a household where everything is immaculate and nothing is ever out and even the drawers are organized, my natural way of living and your natural way of living are not going to mesh. So who's supposed to change? The one that's clean? Are they supposed to get more messy? Usually it's the one, oh no, the messy one's supposed to get cleaner. Are they? Where's the level of respect in between? Can there be a spot where here's where the piles go and the rest of it gets to be immaculate? Can there be a negotiation? Can I learn to be less offended by the piles? Or less worried? So how can we find that balance? Okay. Then also notice, where am I naturally overgiving? Where am I naturally overgiving and just saying like, you know what, I do everything around here and you don't help around here and blah, blah, blah. And this is the way that I feel internally, or maybe I'm saying it externally too, but I'm the one making the choice to overgive. I'm the one that's deciding to make the 4-course meal instead of the spaghetti because it's healthier for the family. I'm the one that's choosing to cut up all the vegetables and create stuff from scratch because I want my kids to be healthier rather than taking something from a box, right? So am I actually making choices and then being angry at others for the choices that I'm making in my own life as well? So we have to look at all of these tools, but often it is one-sided, and I get that. So next week, we're going to talk more about when it is one-sided, and when you're asking and you're begging to be heard, you're asking and you're begging for help, you're asking and you're begging for more, or maybe you are ready to leave the relationship. And this happens a lot when we've got dynamics that are really different, or one person's a drinker and the other one's not, or one person has destructive habits. Drinking, alcoholism, working too much, exercise, right? Like some people are so obsessed about doing all the time, they totally ignore their family. So I'm not just saying it's only destructive, like drinking kinds of habits that are bad. It can be like, you know, in America, we love it when people work too much. Like, oh, good job, you're working 89 hours a week. No. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more next week. So here's what your homework is for tomorrow. I want you to think about it this way. What do I tolerate in love that I would never accept in a friendship? What do I tolerate in love that I would never accept in a friendship? And I'm going to write that in the comments too. And I want you to think about that. Well, I'll write it when I'm done with the class. And I want you to think about that, because this will also help you navigate how much of this is dynamic, how much of this is belief system, how much of this is our own pattern, and how much of this is actually because we need trust, we need respect, we need honesty in relationship in order to survive. And if you lose respect, if you lose trust, if you lose the ability to be honest with each other, that's not good for the relationship, right? That could be a relationship ender right there. So we'll talk about that next week. Also, if you want to deep dive more, I'll drop a link for a free half-an-hour session. So some of you want to talk a little bit deeper, talk a little bit more personally about what's going on. Some of you want to understand a little bit deeper about what I offer as far as classes. That's available. So I'll drop that link as well. But until then, I don't want to go over too much. I said an hour, and it's been just a little over an hour. So remember, comment, tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you're curious about. Tell me where your struggles are. I will do my best to address them in the next couple of classes. And until then, just remember that you are loved, you are loving, and you are lovable. Take care.